This video is going to be very important. We're looking at the properties of quadrilaterals, the definitions. In order to do the work, you have to know the definitions. So you're going to make a tab called Properties of Quadrilaterals Definitions. First, we're going to take a look at in the quadrilateral family is the kite. Let's start with the most obvious thing. It looks like those two sides are equal. So I'm going to say the adjacent sides, which adjacent, remember, means right next to each other, right? Are congruent. And both of them are. So both the top and the bottom, because those also look equal. So you start with the obvious. Then when you can't see anything more obvious, you always draw diagonals. So let me draw diagonals and see what I can see with that. Alright, so when I draw diagonals, I can see that they make a 90-degree angle in the middle, all of them. So I can say diagonals are perpendicular. That means they meet at 90 degrees. See how I can draw the box around all of them. Okay. Looking at the diagonals, what else can I see? Oh, look, the shorter one, the left is equal to the right. So I can write the longer diagonal bisects. Remember, bisect means cuts in half, the shorter one. And then maybe the less obvious one would be this last one, which is one pair of congruent opposite angles, meaning the left and the right, they're congruent. Now the bottom and top are not congruent because the one side is longer and the other one is shorter. So those would be the four things that make a kite. All right, let's look at a trapezoid. Trapezoid is easy. Irregular trapezoid, okay, it just has exactly, now it's very, very important, exactly one set of parallel lines. Exactly. If it has more than that, it's not a trapezoid. And that's it. That's all they can see from there. So I forgot to label what these shapes were. So that's a kite. This is a trapezoid. This is a listening check, color in trapezoid. And this one is an isosceles trapezoid. Now, just like an isosceles triangle, an isosceles trapezoid has two congruent sides and the base angles are equal. That's the only difference. So an isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid, so it has exactly one pair of parallel sides. Again, I can't stress it enough. Exactly. Exactly. One pair of parallel sides. And then just like a triangle, non-parallel opposite sides are congruent. Because you see, it kind of makes a triangle. Like if you join up those two sides, it makes a triangle. So non-parallel opposite sides are congruent. Listening check, put a box around number 2. And again, let me just show you what that looks like. See, there's my triangle. So like that and that would be equal. And then the base angles are congruent. So just like a triangle. So an isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid. So the base angles are congruent. This is a listening check. Right 4. Diagonals are congruent. I forgot to put it in. Right, so those are the easy ones. Now we come to like a little subfamily. So the parallelogram family. So mama steps out, gives birth to a rhombus. Okay, with a baby daddy. She's a little loose, and you know we're gonna forgive her. All right, gives birth to a rhombus. Then with another baby daddy, gives birth to a rectangle. That's why a rhombus and a rectangle, they're not exactly the same. Then I don't know what these two were doing. They got together and they gave birth to a square. Okay, I do not condone them doing all this. All right, so a parallelogram has 5 properties. Let's start with the most obvious. It's in the title, parallel. Parallelogram. 2 pairs of parallel sides, parallelogram. Okay, so you can see 2 sets of parallel sides. All right, what else can I say? Okay, the opposite sides are congruent. If you look at it, because it's a slanted rectangle, right? A parallelogram is a slanted rectangle, so opposite sides are congruent. Because all I did is take a rectangle and slant it. Oh, mark that 2 and 2 ticks because it can't have the same number of ticks on all of them. I'm going to correct it in a bit, I guess. What else do I see? Oh, how about angles? Opposite angles are congruent. Because one's acute and one's obtuse. Oh, look at that. That's another one then. That's going to be consecutive angles are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180. Meaning the angles right next to each other on the same parallel line add up to 180. And that makes sense because they're, what do we call that? Interior, same side. Hey! I should have drawn the house, but I didn't. I'm sorry. I'll show you in class. Remind me. All right, and then once you do all the obvious ones, always draw diagonals. So I'm going to draw diagonals and see what I'm working with. They don't meet at 90, but diagonals bisect each other. What does that mean? They cut each other in half, meaning the left is equal to the right. And I'm going to correct the number of ticks here, as you can see. All right, so you need to memorize these. I mean, a parallelogram is probably your most important because it has a lot. So it has 5. Then the parallelogram gave birth to a rhombus. So the rhombus as a child is going to have everything mama has, which is the 5, plus the daddy stuff, which is 3 more. So the most obvious is all the sides are equal because it's a slanted square. And then because there's nothing else obvious, draw diagonals again. And you can see the diagonals, they meet at 90. So diagonals are perpendicular to one another. And then what else can I say? Oh, they bisect the angles, the vertex angles. The diagonals bisect the vertex angles, meaning they cut them in half. That is equal to that. This is a listening check. Put a circle around number 8. Alright, then the parallelogram got with a different baby daddy and gave birth to a rectangle. So again, the rectangles are going to have everything the parallelogram has plus 2 more. Let's start with the most obvious. You can see that it meets at 90. So that's going to be vertex angles are 90 degrees. And then once you're done with the obvious, then it's always going to be go ahead and draw diagonals and see what they do. They don't meet at 90, but in this one, the diagonals are equal. Oh, they're congruent. This is a listening check. Color in the word rectangle. Okay. So 5 plus 2 will give you the rectangle. So those 5 plus 2 will give you the rectangle. Alright, those two get together. Oh, let me put the numbers in. So the 5 and then the rhombus is going to be 5 plus 3. The rectangle is 5 plus 2. Then those two are going to get together and it's going to be all of them. So 5 plus the 3 from the rhombus and 2 from the rectangle. And the square has all of them, all the properties. So if you once you know them individually, you know them for everything. One last final thing, you need to remember if you're going down this family tree, it's always going to be sometimes. If you're going up, it's going to be always. And I'm going to explain that to you. But we're going to take a look at a question so I can tell you how to answer these. So let's take a look at an example. A parallelogram is blank a square. This is a listening check. Color in has all 10. Another one. Example 2, a square is blank a rectangle. And the last one, even though you can't see it, just listen. Example 3, a rhombus is blank a parallelogram. A rhombus is blank a parallelogram. Alright, so let's take a look at it. So, example 1, if you're going from a parallelogram to a square, are you going up or down? So let's look at the family tree. Parallelogram to a square, you're going down. So if you're going down, it's going to be sometimes. So a parallelogram is sometimes a square. Parallelogram is sometimes a square. Okay, if you're doing the next one, a square is blank a rectangle, a square to a rectangle. What are you doing? You're going from a square to a rectangle, you're going up. If you're going up, it's going to be always. So a square is always a rectangle. And the last one, a rhombus to a parallelogram. So a rhombus to a parallelogram, you're going up. So that's going to be always. And the way I want you to think about this is this. The kids, okay, the kid always has everything the parent has, but the parent has only part of the kid because they're two parents. So think about it for a second. You as a kid, you have you have things from both your mom and your dad. But your mom doesn't have everything that you have because she doesn't have stuff from dad. Does that make sense? Again, if it doesn't make sense, just come see me in class and I'll explain it a little bit better. Just that the kid has everything and the parent doesn't always have everything the kid has. Let's practice.